They say not every victory ends in a crown, and not every hero survives the battle. Somewhere in the ancient forest of the Ramayana, a giant bird rose against evil, not to win, not to live, but to resist. He knew the outcome. He still flew forward. And that is what makes Jatayu unforgettable. Because Jatayu was not just a bird, he was a witness, a protector, and in the deepest sense, he was the first one to challenge Ravana's crime in the open sky. So why does a creature who dies in defeat remain immortal in memory? That is the story of Jatayu. To understand Jatayu, we must first remove the simplified image of him as the bird who died. He was far more than that. In the Ramayana tradition, Jatayu is described as an enormous vulture-like divine bird, old in age, noble in nature, and deeply connected to the moral order of the world. He belonged to the race of great birds, and in many retellings, he is linked to the eagle-like guardians of dharma. But his true identity is not found in his form, it is found in his function. Jatayu represents the ancient idea that dharma is not only defended by kings or warriors. Sometimes it is defended by those whom society may not consider powerful enough. That is one reason his role is so striking. He was not a prince, he was not an emperor, he was not an army. He was an old bird. And yet, when he saw injustice, he did not remain silent. Here is the hidden angle. Jatayu is often remembered for dying, but the deeper truth is that he lived his final moment exactly as he had lived his whole life, by standing on the side of right. The conflict begins with one of the most dramatic and disturbing moments in the Ramayana. Ravana abducts Sita. This is not merely a kidnapping. It is a direct violation of order, trust, and cosmic balance. Ravana does not just take a woman, he attempts to assert desire over law. And then Jatayu sees it. Imagine that scene. A forest, a flying chariot, a helpless woman calling for rescue, and an old bird watching evil move across the sky. Jatayu knew Ravana. He knew Ravana's power. He knew his own age. He knew the balance of strength was against him. This is where the human dilemma enters the story. Should he intervene even if the odds are impossible? Or should he survive, preserve himself, and let the event pass? That is not only a mythological question, it is a very human one. How many times does conscience demand action while fear demands silence? And this is where mythology becomes historical in feeling. Because the Ramayana does not present courage as an emotion, it presents courage as a decision made under impossible pressure. Jatayu was not acting from confidence, he was acting from moral clarity. He knew what Ravana was doing was wrong. He knew someone had to stop it, and if no one else would, then he would.
Jatayu attacks Ravana, not with blind rage, with purpose. The battle is brutal. The sky itself becomes the battlefield. One is a mighty king of Lanka, the other is an aged guardian bird. This is not a fair fight, and that is exactly why it matters. Jatayu claws at Ravana. He strikes the chariot. He tries to block the path. He fights as if the law of the world depends on his wings, because, in a way, it does. Now think carefully about the choice Jatayu made. He did not ask whether he would survive. He did not calculate fame. He did not wait for someone stronger. He chose resistance. That choice defines him more than victory ever could. And yet, Ravana is not a small enemy. He is a being of immense strength, mastery, and weapons. The battle turns against Jatayu. His wings are wounded, his body is torn, and he falls. This is the tragic center of the story. Jatayu's choice was correct. His body was not enough to finish the task. But mythology often separates moral success from physical success. He did not defeat Ravana. He did something perhaps more important. He delayed him. He confronted him. He made evil pay a price. And that price mattered. Because in myth, even resistance that fails can still change history.
Jatayu falls, but he does not disappear. This is the crucial transformation. His fall is not the end of his story. It becomes the beginning of remembrance. When Rama later encounters the dying Jatayu, the scene changes in tone completely. What was once battle becomes mourning. What was once motion becomes testimony. Jatayu gives Rama the truth. He tells him what happened. He becomes the witness who bridges ignorance and action. That is his final function. He ensures that the crime is known, and knowledge in epic stories is often the first step towards justice. Jatayu's fall also changes the emotional structure of the Ramayana. Because before this, the story may appear like a royal epic: kings, princes, exiles, forests, and destiny. But Jatayu introduces something else. He introduces sacrifice without reward. He introduces a truth that many epics hide. Sometimes the noble one does not get the happy ending. Sometimes the righteous one is broken. And still, the world remembers him as great. This is why Jatayu became symbolic, not because he won, but because he refused to become passive in the face of wrongdoing. His death creates a moral echo that travels through the rest of the Ramayana. It reminds us that Ravana's abduction was not a private act. It was a cosmic offense witnessed by the universe itself. And Jatayu was the witness. Jatayu's story is powerful because it destroys a very common illusion. The illusion is this: that only the strongest are important. Jatayu proves otherwise. He was old, he was outmatched, he was wounded, and yet he entered history because he chose dharma over safety. That is why he is remembered as more than a bird. He becomes a philosophical figure. He represents moral responsibility without guarantee of success. There is also a deeper layer here. Jatayu is often described as a guardian of the southern direction in certain traditions. Symbolically, this matters. He stands at the edge, at the threshold, at the place where danger enters. He is a protector of passage, and in this story, he tries to stop the passage of adharma. That gives his role a larger meaning. He is not only guarding Sita, he is guarding the moral boundary of the world. And when he fails physically, the value of his action still remains intact. This is one of mythology's most serious lessons. Not all noble acts produce immediate results. Not all sacrifices are rewarded in the moment. But the act itself can still shape memory, ethics, and destiny. Jatayu fell in battle, but he did not fall in meaning. That is why his story continues to matter across generations. Because every age knows this problem. Every age sees injustice that seems too large to stop. every age asks the same silent question. Should one act even when victory seems impossible? Jatayu answers without words, yes. Even if the wings break, even if the body falls, even if the world does not immediately change. Because sometimes the first duty of righteousness is simply to rise. And Jatayu did rise. He rose against adharma. He rose against silence. He rose against fear. Then he fell. But in that fall, he became eternal. Jatayu is not remembered because he survived. He is remembered because he stood. And in the ancient moral universe of the Ramayana, that is enough to become immortal.